Your one click on the subscribe button makes a huge difference. Thank you for your kind support.
The 2024 comedy Friendship, directed by Andrew DeYoung and starring Tim Robinson and Paul Rudd, takes us on a wild journey through the ups and downs of male friendship. Set in the small town of Clovis, Colorado, this movie gives us a sometimes uncomfortable but incredibly relatable look at what happens when a lonely man becomes obsessed with a new friendship. Let's break down this quirky, dark comedy that explores loneliness, male bonding, and the desperate need for connection. Our story begins with Craig Waterman, played by Tim Robinson, a marketing executive who seems to be going through a rough patch in his life. We first meet him at what appears to be a support group meeting where people are sharing their personal struggles. We see Tammy, Craig's wife, sharing that she's been cancer-free for 12 months, but still lives with the constant fear of it returning. She mentions that focusing on her business helps her cope with anxiety, and she talks about her friend Devin who makes her laugh. This immediately sets up that Craig's wife has a close relationship with someone else, which later becomes significant. Craig's life seems pretty mundane until one day he receives a package that was mistakenly delivered to his address. Being a good neighbor, he walks over to deliver it to its rightful owner, Austin Carmichael, played by Paul Rudd. Austin, a local TV weatherman with a cheerful personality, invites Craig in for a drink. This simple interaction sparks what becomes an intense friendship between the two men. During their first hangout, Craig is immediately drawn to Austin's carefree attitude and confidence. Austin shows Craig his collection of historical artifacts, including a 400,000-year-old stone hand axe, which represents one of the first human objects ever made. This artifact becomes symbolic of primitive human connection throughout the movie. When Craig accidentally spills his drink on himself, Austin offers him a clean shirt and then spontaneously suggests they go on an adventure. Austin leads Craig through the city's underground aqueduct system, which was built in 1837. This hidden underground world becomes a recurring location and metaphor in the film, representing the depths of their friendship and later, the depths of Craig's obsession. During this first adventure, Craig seems to come alive, experiencing a kind of freedom and excitement that's been missing from his life. Austin invites Craig to see his band play the next night and puts him on the guest list as a rock star, a nickname that becomes meaningful to Craig. The next day, we see Craig at his marketing job, where he appears to be successful but uninspired. When he returns home, his wife Tammy mentions that Austin and his wife Bianca have invited them to a housewarming party, but then receives a call that it's been canceled because Bianca supposedly has diarrhea. Craig suggests they invite people over to their house instead, but Tammy asks if Devin is available, indicating her close relationship with her ex-boyfriend. Craig, seeking to recapture the excitement he felt with Austin, convinces Tammy to go on an adventure with him. He takes her to the same underground tunnels Austin showed him. However, unlike Craig's experience with Austin, this adventure goes horribly wrong. Tammy is uncomfortable, falls, and eventually goes missing in the tunnels. This sends the town into panic mode as search efforts begin to find her. Meanwhile, Austin has followed Craig's advice to just ask for what he wants and has secured the morning weatherman position he's been dreaming of. When Craig visits him at the TV station, he disrupts Austin's first broadcast, causing Austin to stumble on air, which strains their friendship. Austin distances himself from Craig, leaving Craig desperate to reconnect. As the search for Tammy continues, Craig's behavior becomes increasingly erratic. He's questioned by police about Tammy's disappearance, and we see him repeatedly saying, "I'm sorry," in numerous scenes, suggesting his guilt over what happened. Eventually, Tammy is found safe, and a welcome-back party is thrown for her. At the party, Craig gives an awkward toast that reveals his detachment from reality, while Austin gives a heartfelt speech about Tammy being a warrior and healer. This contrast highlights the growing gap between Craig's perception and reality. After the party, Tammy tells Craig that she's had a spiritual awakening while lost in the tunnels and experienced an orgasm in the solar system, a bizarre detail that further shows the disconnection between the couple. She then informs Craig that she's moving into Devin's pool house, effectively ending their marriage. Craig's obsession with Austin intensifies as he watches Austin succeed at his new weather job and bond with a new group of friends. In one pivotal scene, Austin invites Craig to hang out with his guy friends. Initially, everything goes well as the men drink, sing karaoke, and bond, but the night takes a dark turn when they start boxing for fun. Craig, desperate to impress the group, delivers a cheap shot to one of Austin's friends. When the group reacts negatively, Craig bizarrely punishes himself by stuffing soap in his mouth, causing everyone to feel uncomfortable. This incident gets Craig labeled as psycho and further alienates him from Austin and the friend group. In his desperation to experience a profound connection, Craig visits a teenager who sells him a psychedelic toad venom experience. During his trip, Craig hallucinates going to Subway and ordering a sandwich, but the dealer tells him the totality is mysterious, suggesting Craig still hasn't found the answers he's seeking. Craig tries multiple times to reconcile with Austin and his friend group, even showing up uninvited to Austin's house and bringing expensive drums as a gift. His behavior becomes increasingly concerning as he makes strange speeches and attempts to force his way back into Austin's life. At one point, Craig sees Austin driving a yellow sports car, the same car Austin had previously mentioned he dreamed of owning, promising Craig would be the first passenger if he ever got it. Seeing Austin driving others in the car triggers Craig's complete breakdown. In the film's climactic scene, Craig crashes Austin's guy's night party. Armed with a gun he inadvertently stole from Austin's house during a previous break-in, Craig holds everyone hostage and tries to forcibly recreate the camaraderie of their first hangout. During the standoff, Austin's wig falls off, revealing a secret that Austin had been hiding. He's bald and wears a hairpiece. Craig, in his deluded state, believed that sharing this secret creates a special bond between them. The situation escalates until the police arrive and arrest Craig. The final scenes show Craig in the back of a police car, imagining an alternate reality where everything went well with Austin and his friends. In his imagination, Austin gives him a wink of approval, and Craig smiles, still living in his fantasy world where their friendship is perfect. Throughout the film, there are recurring motifs that deepen our understanding of Craig's character. His repeated mantra of, "I'm sorry," shows his awareness of his inappropriate behavior, but inability to change it. The underground tunnels represent the depths of his loneliness and the dark places his obsession takes him. And the stone hand axe that Austin shows him symbolizes primitive human connection, something Craig desperately craves but doesn't know how to achieve in a healthy way. What makes friendship so compelling is how it examines the rarely explored territory of male friendship and loneliness. Craig represents a particular type of middle-aged man who lacks the emotional tools to form healthy connections. His desperation for Austin's friendship stems from a deep-seated loneliness and fear of abandonment, especially as his wife grows closer to her ex-boyfriend Devin. Austin, on the other hand, represents a more socially adept man who can form connections easily, but doesn't understand the depth of Craig's need. The film also explores how men often struggle to express vulnerability and form meaningful connections with each other. Craig's extreme behavior, from breaking into Austin's house to holding his friends at gunpoint, are disturbing extensions of his inability to process his emotions in a healthy way. His obsession with Austin becomes a substitute for the emotional intimacy missing in his marriage and the control he's lost in his life after Tammy's cancer diagnosis. The character of Tammy adds another layer to the story. Her cancer diagnosis and recovery have changed her outlook on life, leading her to seek freedom and self-expression away from Craig. Her rekindled relationship with Devin represents her own journey toward authentic connection, contrasting with Craig's unhealthy fixation on Austin. When she gets lost in the tunnels, it symbolizes her own spiritual journey separate from Craig's influence. The town of Clovis, Colorado, serves as more than just a backdrop. It represents a confining environment where people feel trapped in their routines and social roles. The underground tunnels that Austin shows Craig are literally beneath the city, representing a hidden world of possibility and escape from the mundane surface life. This makes it all the more significant that Craig tries to recreate this experience with Tammy, only to have it go horribly wrong. The film's comedic elements come from the uncomfortable social situations and Craig's increasingly bizarre behavior. The humor is cringeworthy and dark, often making viewers laugh and wince simultaneously. Tim Robinson's performance as Craig perfectly captures the character's social awkwardness and growing desperation, while Paul Rudd brings charm and likability to Austin, making the audience understand why Craig would be so drawn to him. The ending of Friendship leaves us with Craig arrested and delusional, still believing in the possibility of a perfect friendship with Austin. This bittersweet conclusion suggests that Craig hasn't learned from his mistakes or come to terms with his behavior. Instead, he retreats into fantasy, imagining Austin giving him a wink of approval from across the street. This delusion highlights Craig's fundamental inability to engage with reality and form healthy connections. The film can be interpreted as a cautionary tale about the dangers of obsession and the importance of emotional intelligence in forming relationships. Craig's fixation on Austin represents a misguided attempt to fill the emotional void in his life. Rather than addressing the real issues in his marriage or seeking professional help, he projects all his needs onto this new friendship, setting himself up for disappointment and embarrassment. Another interpretation focuses on the film's examination of masculinity and male friendship. In American culture, men often lack the emotional vocabulary and social permission to form deep, vulnerable connections with other men. Craig's extreme behavior can be seen as a warped expression of this cultural limitation. His obsession with Austin is partly driven by his lack of other emotional outlets and meaningful male relationships. The movie also explores the theme of midlife crisis and the fear of irrelevance. Craig's job in marketing seems unsatisfying. His marriage is falling apart, and his son is growing up and pulling away. His friendship with Austin briefly makes him feel young, important, and alive again. When that friendship is threatened, he goes to extreme lengths to preserve it because he sees it as his last chance at happiness and meaning. From a psychological perspective, Craig exhibits traits of dependent personality disorder and possibly borderline personality disorder. His fear of abandonment, intense and unstable relationships, and extreme reactions to perceived rejection are consistent with these conditions. The film doesn't explicitly diagnose Craig, but his behavior goes beyond normal social awkwardness into the realm of clinical concern. The character of Austin serves as an interesting counterpoint to Craig. While he's initially warm and welcoming to Craig, he fails to recognize the intensity of Craig's attachment and doesn't set appropriate boundaries early on. When he does finally distance himself, it's too late. Craig's obsession has already taken root. Austin's own journey from night weatherman to morning anchor parallels his movement away from Craig's influence and back to his established social circle. Craig's son Stephen plays a smaller but significant role in the story. As a teenager, he's navigating his own path to independence, further highlighting Craig's sense of obsolescence. The scene where Craig buys drums for Stephen represents a fumbling attempt to connect with his son, but like many of Craig's efforts at meaningful connection, it feels forced and misguided. The film's use of music and visual style enhances its themes. The underground scenes are shot with an eerie, dreamlike quality that emphasizes their symbolic importance. Austin's band performances represent a kind of authentic expression that Craig envies but can't achieve. Even the weather reports serve a thematic purpose, with Austin's forecasts acting as a metaphor for life's unpredictability. Friendship works so well because it takes a seemingly simple premise, a new friendship between two men, and explores it with psychological depth and dark humor. The film recognizes that friendship, particularly male friendship in adulthood, can be complicated and fraught with unspoken emotions and expectations. By taking these complications to extreme, sometimes absurdist lengths, the movie highlights aspects of male bonding that are often overlooked in mainstream entertainment. The psychedelic toad scene serves as a turning point in Craig's journey. Seeking profound insight or connection, he licks a toad's venom expecting a transformative experience. Instead, he hallucinates a mundane trip to Subway, suggesting that even in altered states of consciousness, Craig can't escape his ordinary existence. The dealer's cryptic comment that the totality is mysterious hints at the film's larger message. There are no easy answers or quick fixes to the complex problem of human connection. Craig's repeated mantra of, "I'm sorry," becomes increasingly hollow as the film progresses. He apologizes constantly, but never actually changes his behavior, highlighting the gap between social performance and genuine transformation. His apologies serve more to make himself feel better than to actually repair the damage he's caused to others. The film also touches on class differences between Craig and Austin. Austin appears to be more financially successful and socially connected than Craig, adding another layer to Craig's envy and obsession. The yellow sports car becomes a symbol of Austin's success and Craig's perceived failure. When Austin buys it and doesn't give Craig the first ride as promised, it's the final straw that pushes Craig over the edge. The scene where Craig takes Tammy to the tunnels that Austin showed him represents his desperate attempt to recreate the magic of his experience with Austin. By literally following the same path with his wife, he's trying to transfer the feelings of connection and excitement he felt with Austin to his marriage. The disastrous outcome, Tammy getting lost, symbolizes how Craig's fixation on Austin has led him further away from his wife rather than closer to her. Austin's wig coming off during the climactic standoff scene serves multiple symbolic purposes. On a literal level, it reveals a secret that Austin has been hiding, creating a forced intimacy between him and Craig. Symbolically, it represents the stripping away of pretense and the exposure of vulnerability, something Craig has been seeking throughout their friendship. The fact that Craig fixates on protecting this secret even during a hostage situation shows how distorted his priorities have become. The film's setting in a small town amplifies its themes of confinement and escape. In smaller communities, social roles can feel more rigid and opportunities for reinvention more limited. The underground tunnels running beneath the town serve as a metaphor for the hidden emotional currents running beneath the surface of everyday interactions. By showing Craig both the tunnels and the stone hand axe, Austin inadvertently gives him access to primitive, underground aspects of himself that eventually prove destructive. Craig's job in marketing is significant to his character. He works in an industry focused on creating artificial desires and manipulating emotions, skills he later applies to his friendship with Austin. His failed pitch to Mayor Nichols, where he talks about giving people the illusion of self-expression, ironically reflects his own journey. Craig is seeking genuine connection, but only knows how to create illusions of it. The repeated image of Craig alone in his car, practicing what to say or processing emotional events, emphasizes his isolation. The car serves as a liminal space between public and private, a place where Craig can be himself without judgment. This makes it particularly significant that in the final scene, he's in the back of a police car, still isolated, but now without even the freedom to drive his own path. Tammy's cancer recovery forms an important backdrop to the story. Her brush with mortality has changed her, making her less willing to settle for an unfulfilling life with Craig. Her statement that she had an orgasm in the solar system, while lost in the tunnels, suggests a spiritual awakening that Craig can't understand or participate in. Their diverging paths after her illness represent how major life events can either bring couples closer together or reveal fundamental incompatibilities. The film's portrayal of male friend groups is particularly insightful. Austin's friends have established rituals and inside jokes that Craig desperately wants to be part of. The boxing scene represents the physical dimension of male bonding that often substitutes for emotional vulnerability. When Craig violates the unspoken rules of this physical interaction by taking a cheap shot, he reveals his fundamental misunderstanding of the social contract that governs male friendships. The welcome back party for Tammy serves as a mirror image of the initial guys' night, with Craig once again failing to read the room and behaving inappropriately. His suggestion of a parade for Tammy, an insistence on controlling the narrative of her return, show his desperate need to center himself in a situation that should be about his wife. This scene perfectly captures how Craig's self-absorption prevents him from forming authentic connections. Craig's theft of Austin's gun, whether intentional or accidental, foreshadows the film's violent climax. The gun represents power and control, things Craig feels he's losing in every aspect of his life. By taking the gun, he literally arms himself against the rejection he fears, setting up the film's tense and darkly comic hostage situation. The scene where Craig licks the psychedelic toad parallels his earlier exploration of the tunnels with Austin. Both experiences represent Craig's search for transcendence and meaning beyond his mundane existence. However, while the tunnel exploration with Austin felt genuinely transformative, the toad experience is hollow and commercial. The dealer leaves Craig alone during his trip to get a Red Bull and Rolos, emphasizing the shallow nature of this attempt at connection. Craig's repeated breaking into Austin's home shows the progressive deterioration of his boundaries and judgment. What starts as enthusiastic friendship devolves into stalking and invasion, mirroring how his initially harmless admiration for Austin transforms into dangerous obsession. Each break-in represents a further crossing of social and legal boundaries. The film's treatment of Tammy's disappearance and return deserves special attention. When she goes missing, the entire town mobilizes to find her, contrasting with Craig's social isolation. Her return party shows her surrounded by friends and supporters, further highlighting the difference between her social integration and Craig's increasing alienation. When she tells Craig she's moving to Devon's pool house, it represents not